days. Day before, I was taking my car in to get it worked on the NorbCam van after my rear ending from a couple of weeks ago. Finally got that in the shop. And yesterday, with the Russell Wilson press conference going on, of course, I had to work on my own version, which took off pretty well yesterday. Don't know if you guys had a chance to see it. If you haven't, you need to go check it out. My Russell Wilson press conference, the NorbCam version. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday to you. It's a nice, it's kind of a cold, it's again still cold out here. And overcast day in the Pacific Northwest where I live. Out to do my walk. And man, there's been so much going on. Thought I'd get a few thoughts in about the latest. Yeah, yesterday was a pretty big deal, obviously, with the official announcement of the trade of Russell Wilson to the Broncos and other free agency moves. Seahawks had their own press conference. John Schneider, Pete Carroll. Just kind of share a few thoughts on all that as I take you on a little walk with me around the neighborhood for the next 35, 40 minutes or so, or however long you guys can hang out. I want to say a quick shout out to those jumping on quick here. Sketchy Scorpion, Hudson Ostrander, Not Chief, watching from high school. Dual Reaper, happy Thursday to you. Dennis Sorensen, Sam A, and Tyler Parcher, what's up? We might get Trent Brown. Oh, keep an eye on things here. Let's see, where to begin? I think before I get into all the press conference stuff, hey, chill out, doggy. Chill out. All right. I want to start with just, it got lost in the shuffle, I think, because of all the Russell Wilson news, but 3 pretty key free agents picked up yesterday. Start with one of the biggest needs, talking about pass rush. This year, the defense is kind of moving from a 4-3 to a 3-4 type of scheme. So instead of where you have big ends, you have more 3 linemen and more like 4 faster linebacker types. And so somebody was brought in for the Chargers, a pretty big deal, $20 million, 2-year, $20 million deal, 10.5 of it guaranteed. If I get his name right, Uchenna. I had this already. Uchenna Nwosu from the Chargers, pass rusher. So, yeah, hopefully, that's a lot of money. They don't always spend that much on free agents, so it's kind of a big gamble, but it's a position of need. So I'm glad to see that they made a move to get a guy like that in there. So see what he can do. Another area of need, we got to talk about the offensive line. So they got Austin Blythe to come in to snap the ball. Finally, a pretty big signing. He was a starter for the Rams, 18 and 19. Or was it 1920? It was maybe 1920. And then he played for the Chiefs. Didn't start, though, last season. But they got this guy to basically, well, I guess compete at center, but I would assume that will be his job, given his contract. So nice to see them addressing the offensive line. And then another position of need, since we didn't get DJ Reed, which was very disappointing. I was hoping the 2 biggest guys we could get back would be, number 1, Quandre Diggs, which they did, with the biggest deal so far, $40 million deal. And then DJ Reed ended up going to the Jets for about $11 million a year. So they ended up picking up Artie Burns. And he was with Sean Desai, one of our defensive coaches who coached him up while in Chicago. And I see some mixed reactions in terms of how good he is. So I think I saw somebody tweeting out one of his former fans of his former team saying, not that impressed with him. He's beat. He started with the Steelers and went to the Bears. But so we'll see. I'm hoping that this will work out because he didn't last with the Steelers very long. Somebody said that he struggled in man coverage. So I don't know, we'll find out about that, and time will tell. But I'm glad they're addressing, obviously positions that we definitely need. I mean, those three you could list right there. Offensive line, pass rush, corner, for sure, positions that we need. So, we did re-sign Sidney Jones. Obviously we got our safety tandems. Trey Brown will be there. We also have some of the restricted free agents we picked, re-signed as well. Brian Monet, Bless Austin. So, we are getting a lot of those pieces back, but we still have some big unanswered questions. Obviously, running back, we still haven't seen what's going to happen with Rashad Penny yet. He hasn't signed with anybody yet, so he's still floating out there. Really come back to the Seahawks to pick up where he left off, or really go elsewhere. Right now, Chris Carson is our main guy, and he's coming off a neck surgery and a pretty hampered season from last year. So after that, you just got DJ Dallas and Travis Homer. So if you're going to running the ball is going to be a big part of it. Well, if it's Rashad Penny, that's cool. If not, we're going to have to make some other moves to beef up that area, because that Carson's not going to last the whole season. Okay, and then finally, the biggest question is running back. Quarterback. What will the Seahawks ultimately do? And I'll get to that in a second, because some of it ties into what we heard in the press conferences. So going back to the Russell press conference, as you know, as I just mentioned, I released my press conference video, my sort of parody of what I expected it to sound like, about 2 hours before his actual press conference. So if you watch my video, note that I did that before Russell's actual press conference. So I didn't have any of his material to go off of. I was just guessing on some of the things he might possibly say. And then, of course, I had a little fun saying the things that you only wish to say truthfully, which is probably what, is in his mind, but of course would never be said. So I had a little fun with it. It seemed like a lot of people enjoyed it. Took a couple little jabs at both the Seahawks and Russ, but nothing too cutting. So I would like to think, even if those guys were to watch it, not that they would take the time to do that, but I would think that they might even have a chuckle themselves. Anyway, so I didn't watch it live, but I watched it after the fact. The two press conferences, Russell's and the John Schneider, Pete Carroll one. And pretty much there were parts where it felt like, that is pretty kind of what I expected Russ would do. Expected him to talk about how grateful he is to be in Denver and how appreciative he is of all the time he had in Seattle and the coaches and everything like that. And I think what's funny about press conferences like this, and Russ is great. He has got the press conference thing down, which is of course why it's so easy to buy into what he says. And then when it turns out to be not what you thought he was saying, you kind of feel like you're foiled, because he does such a good job of making it sound like you're believing every word that he says, when clearly he can put on the poker face better than anybody. Why is it always cloudy there? It's March. It does get sunny here once in a while, and it does rain sometimes, but it's often cloudy like this. That's why you take your vitamin D supplements. Okay, so Russ. I think what's funny about press conferences is that, and it kind of goes with anybody who has to switch teams. It's not just unique to Russ, but somehow you have to delicately say good things about the team you left, unless you really left on bad terms. But if it's supposed to be one of these things, and you could tell that both the Seahawks and Russ are trying to make this a very amicable, non-drama thing, because they obviously kept it very low key. That's why nobody knew about it, for this deal to go through. I said that in my little video, or spoofed that fact. So everybody's kind of playing cover your butt in this situation. So everybody wants to come out not looking like there's any one bad guy, because everybody's kind of playing it pretty safe in terms of what they reveal. But in general, when you leave a team and you go to the next one, you have to not sound like you're upset with the previous team, and so as to not make the fan base hate you. But at the same time, you have to say things that make you excited and positive about the team you're going to, right? It's natural. So in Russ's case, he says, Russ, why did you pick Denver? Well, the basic, besides all the fluff that he puts in there, the main thing he said, well, I want to win. And it was important to me to go to a winning organization. Well, I thought about that. I thought, Denver's a winning organization. Well, let's see how much winning they've actually done over the years. If I look back just like the last 7 years, as we know, in 2015, they won Super Bowl 50, the big 5-0. That was the last Peyton Manning won, or really the defense won that game against the Carolina Panthers. But after that, they've had 6 straight non-playoff seasons, and really 5 of those 6 have been losing seasons. Only one season, a year after they won the Super Bowl, they went 9-7, finished second. And I think the rest of the time, they've been maybe one other time they finished second in the division, but third and last the rest of the time. And like I said, they've only had one winning record since winning the Super Bowl. The rest of the time, they've had losing records. So I don't know what definition of a winning organization Russell's talking about, because they certainly haven't been doing much of that. Not at least not since Super Bowl 50. That's 6 seasons ago. So when you say I'm coming here because it's a winning organization, I don't exactly see the truth in that. But it also, when you say that, anytime you say something where you compliment the other organization, you're sort of backhandedly insulting the one you're leaving. Because you have to say, oh yeah, I chose them because they have a winning tradition. They really want to win. They have the players to win. What you're kind of saying is, I'm leaving the organization that doesn't. Right? Because you can't really say one without the other. So it's hard and amusing at the same time to watch this and watch him say these things and not feel a little bit insulted. Because Seattle, between the two of them, who's had more winning? Clearly, the Seahawks. They've been to the playoffs every year except for last year in 2017. And you compare that to Denver, who's done more winning? Hands down, Seahawks have been doing more winning. Now, Russell might change that. But really what he means to say is, I want to go to a team where I'm going to make them a winner, and they're going to make the team all about me, so I can beef up my stats and get some MVP votes. I think that's really what he wants to say. I should have said that in my video. But that would be my altered version if I were to make a new one based on what he said, the true version of what he said. So I find that a little bit funny when they bring up things like that. But Russ was asked, and here's what became very interesting. So during that press conference, Pete Carroll and John Schneider also, the Seahawks released statements of their own and then had their press conference later. But on their social media, they put out 3 statements by Pete Carroll, John Schneider, and Jody Allen. All 3, and I'm sure this was not by accident, all 3 clearly in the opening statement said something to the fact that as Russ wanted to move on or wanted the trade, basically stating that everything that was done was because Russell Wilson wanted it. And he was asked in the middle of that, because I think that those statements were released during Russell's press conference, and a journalist asked about that and said, the Seahawks just put out a statement saying that you wanted the trade. Is that true? And he said, no. I didn't force anything. It was a mutual decision, he said. And then he finished it. This is kind of the cringy part. He kind of did it jokingly. He said, all I know is I'm going to be here. Those were 10 great years. All I know now is I'm here. And, that'll be a great story for later. Maybe you can read about it in my book. I roll. Come on, Russ. So it's interesting. Both sides. And then in the Pete Carroll, John Schneider press conference, they were also asked the same thing. When did you know that Russell was no longer going to be a Seahawk? Who started that? They were very vague as well. Clearly, neither of them want to say the real story, but everyone sort of danced around it to put essentially that the point at which it started to become a reality was somewhere between the end of last season, as in the end of the 2020 season, and 4 days ago. So with that much we know. But Russ claims that even at the end of last year, 2021, that he, quote, had both feet on the ground in Seattle, meaning he was still planning to be here and trying to figure out how he can work things out with Seattle. I find that very hard to believe, especially with the one big elephant in the room that I've talked about that has never truly been explained. The 4 teams Russell would go to if he were traded, but he's not asking to be traded. So I don't buy that it was only in the last month or so that this change started to happen. I think it's been in the works for a while. And the Seahawks explanation is that they realized that Russ was not going to likely extend or sign an extension to his contract. And so once they realized that that was coming, then they knew they had to make a move sooner than later. So all that part is true. When you put everything to where it was clear that the ending was happening, that there was not going to be a Russ beyond 2020. Well, technically, if he played out his contract, it would have been 2023. But in these way the contracts work, obviously, if you're going to try to get value, you got to do it before the contract ends. Otherwise, he just walks, you get nothing. So all that is true, that when it became clear that he wasn't going to be here, you had to make a move now. And really, it could be argued they could have done this move if they knew for sure last year. But then I think, how do you justify trading a quarterback when you just finished winning your division, going 12-4 on the season? People would be like, what? Are you guys insane? So it's a lot easier to do it after you finish 7-10. You know, definitely looks more like the right time where people wouldn't be as upset as they would have last year. They could have gotten much more value last year, I believe, because that was before Russell's injury, before he goes 7-10. But it obviously didn't happen that way. So I find it very entertaining, this dance that everybody does. And I said this before. I said this after the trade went down, that I said, I'm done listening to press conferences. And my buddy Michael Lorraine, 80s Broncos fan, he's probably listening to this right now. Called me out yesterday. He goes, so, Norb, are you going to stick to what you said where you're not going to listen to press conferences anymore? And I said, well, I might listen to this one just because I want to hear how they're going to try to defend their BS that they were saying all this whole time. But my main point is I'm not going to buy into what they say. They're like, oh, so now you're backpedaling, saying you weren't going to listen at all, and now you're saying you will listen, you're just not going to buy into it. I said, well, I think this particular press conference is unique because it's the one time Russ and Pete Carroll and John Schneider are going to talk about the trade. After this, it's kind of done. So you have one time. So it's kind of must listen to news. But I think from moving forward, anytime it's going to be, like I said, the only time a press conference I think is of any value is when on the heels of a win, because they'll talk about all the stuff that went great and it's all feel good, right? Hey, how did you do that? And what was the key to winning? And everybody smiles. It's when it's bad situations, explaining a loss, explaining why you did something that you said you weren't going to do. I mean, those are never happy, feel good situations that you really want to spend much time talking about. So anyway, But yes, that moving forward, that is going to be my mindset. And it started really with this one because they asked, and it's kind of a stupid question because it goes back to what I said before I was going to talk about the Russell Wilson thing. What will the Seahawks do at quarterback? So as we all know from Denver, one of the biggest things they got in the value was 2 first-round picks, one this year and another one next year, and a couple seconds and a 5th, plus the 3 players we talked about. One of those players is Drew Lock, the quarterback for the Broncos. And so right now, if you were to believe what you hear from Pete Carroll and John Schneider, is that Pete Carroll went on a whole several-minute explanation about second chances. And I think that was setting up to talk about Drew Lock is getting a second chance here in Seattle. Meaning he kind of got the shaft in Denver, didn't play very well, and now he gets a second chance here. Now, do I believe them when they say that, they see all this promise in Drew Lock and he's getting a second chance? Based on, if you look at his record, not very impressive. And with the other question was asked, again, dumb question, are you going to draft the quarterback with your 9th pick in the draft? And they even laughed about it. They said, we're not going to answer that question. But look, if you have a plan, and right now I believe Seattle has a plan because this does not look like a rebuilding team. I believe that when they say they're not rebuilding. You want to call it resetting or retooling, whatever. But they're not doing a full rebuild in the sense that a full rebuild means you're jettisoning everyone, all the expensive free agents, and you're starting really young, knowing that you're probably going to lose games. But you don't bring in a $20 million pass rusher. You don't sign a $40 million deal with Quandre Diggs, where these contracts are 2-3 years. You don't do those moves. You don't think you're going to win at least in the next 1 to 2 years. So that to me means financially, they're going forward with trying to win. Now, back to the Drew Lock equation. So is Drew Lock, is he a lock to be the quarterback? Well, let's just say, hypothetically, the Seahawks have a plan. And let's say that plan is to draft a Malik Willis in the first round of this year's NFL draft. Would you even hint to the public that you are interested in drafting a quarterback? You would want everyone to believe that you are all in on Drew Lock or anybody but the guy you're going after. Because the last thing you want to do is have it to where some other organization who's ahead of you, who's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, who's also in the market for a quarterback, or is in a division they don't want you to get that guy. They're going to do something to try to leapfrog you and sabotage your plans. So, of course, the Seahawks aren't going to play their hand. So I think, if I were a betting man, I think the Seahawks are going to draft a quarterback in the 9th spot, and they're going to make it look like they're not. And they're just going to talk up Drew Lock and anybody else that they might bring in. They could even bring in Colin Kaepernick as a additional smokescreen just to make it look like they're, checking out any of their options except to draft a quarterback in the ninth pick in this year's draft. That's going to be my guess. Now, I don't know if that's the wise move. I don't think so, based on that there's probably better quarterbacks in next year's draft. But if you do that, you're going to have to kind of wait a whole year. Are you really going to waste a year with an unproven quarterback or a mediocre quarterback who can end up being the shortcoming in a year where you're lining up all these other pieces and potentially wasting expensive contracts that you are doing this year? Like the cornerback that I talked about who came from the Bears and the Steelers. That's a 1-year deal for not very much. It's like 2-point-something million. But, what's the point of that if you're going to not really roll with somebody that you can win with at quarterback? So it seems to me that there's a lot of talk about the Deshaun Watson thing. And I said to myself that if legally in the court of law, there's nothing criminally proven of his guilt, that would be open to the idea of the Seahawks entertaining a Deshaun Watson trade. But I don't think it's going to happen now. Clearly, if the media reports are to be believed, and again, who knows, because everything's all a big smokescreen these days. Supposedly, the Seahawks are not interested, and Deshaun Watson himself is not interested. And Watson has been talking to the Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints are in that mix. I think even Cleveland came up. I don't know if he's actually talked to them. I think he might have. So anyway, it sure looks like Seattle's not going to be part of that equation at all, which is maybe fine because on the flip side, he's an awesome, extraordinary talent. But you bring with it, one, all the controversy of this thing, which is very polarizing and questionable, of course, if it truly is, even if he's not proven guilty, if he's doing some of these things we're talking about, there's always going to be lingering concern about that. And secondly, they want everything. They want more than what Russell Wilson got for this guy. That's the crazy part, I think, about this whole thing is that Russell Wilson, who's, you might call him corny, cheesy, cringy, whatever, but the dude has never done one wrong thing off the field. He does quite the opposite. Can't knock him for the good things he does, no matter how much you might eye roll at all of his fashion, pictures with his wife and cologne perfume pictures and all this stuff. I roll myself, like, oh, come on, Mr. Unlimited. I think that might have been the cringiest video I ever put out here. You know what? I'm going to give myself a nickname, and you know what I'm going to call myself? Mr. Unlimited. Who does that? I remember watching that going, God, Russ, don't. You're killing me here, brother. And I love you for our quarterback. Man, Mr. Unlimited? How about Mr. Shut up and stop posting? Because that just was like, whatever happened to humility and humbleness? That's the ironic thing is that with Russ is that he puts out stuff like that and some very provocative photos with him and his wife, but then he'll throw out biblical passages. I don't know, the contradiction to some of these things all going out together just sometimes they don't always add up. So I know a lot of people who are bitter. Seahawks fans are glad he's not here anymore, or at least trying to rationalize it by convincing themselves that they're happy he's not here anymore, unfollowing him. And thank goodness I don't have to read those corny ass posts anymore. Well, we will be missing that. But I got off track here. What was I going with? Oh, the Deshaun Watson thing. The funny thing is, the Deshaun Watson with all his criminal stuff, and granted, performance-wise, quarterback-wise, if you just put the two guys together, you got Deshaun Watson, who's, 7 years younger, 6, 7 years younger? He's taller, probably more athletic, throws, maybe Russell's got the deep ball on him, but he's pretty good. Toe-to-toe, they could probably match up pretty well. Yet, for Deshaun Watson, they want a king's ransom, more than what we got for Russ, because they want 3 first-round picks. We only got 2 for Russ, and it doesn't just stop there. So any team that gets Deshaun Watson is going to be paying up the nose in terms of draft capital, and then salary yet to be determined as well. So here's the thing, and I posted on these walks and other places that, should I feel bad for rooting against Russell Wilson? There's actually a very legit reason why everybody, and I mean everybody who's a Seahawks fan, should root against Russell Wilson with the Broncos next year. And here's why. Take your personal feelings aside. Let's say you don't even care that he left. Pretend like you don't even know who Russell Wilson is. You just joined the Seahawks and say, hey, I think I'll watch the Seahawks now. What's going on? We own the Broncos' first-round pick for next year. That means, however the Broncos do this season will dictate where we draft next year. In other words, if they win the Super Bowl, we'll draft number 32 next year. If they end up in last place in the entire NFL, we would draft number 1. That's how the draft works. So for anyone who wants to see Russ succeed with the Broncos, you're basically shooting down the Seahawks' potential to get better players next year. And we're talking game-changing positions. Get in the upper rounds of the draft, you know that those are where the real pivotal difference makers come. So it would behoove all Seahawks fans and anybody who wants the Seahawks to succeed in terms of building up players for the draft, because we've all talked about how they've been sucking in the draft build-up lately. If you are a true Seahawks fan, you should want the Broncos, and that includes then quarterback Russell Wilson, to fail at least next year. Well, actually, no, both years, because we've got another draft pick. I can't remember now if the 2 second-rounders are for this year or if it's also a draft for next year. I think there's another pick for next year. Either way, it just helps all those picks that are next year get better if the Broncos do poorly this year. So there you go. That's my logical, non-emotional rationale behind why we must root for Russ to fail, at least in his first year. Now, and imagine this now, right? They're faced with Russell Wilson. Right now, they're riding high. It kind of reminds me of when we picked up Jamal Adams, right? We were all stoked. Like, oh, man, we're getting this guy who can do all these amazing things. He's super talented. And he just, was in a bad situation. Now he's going to be with a team that's going to win. And he, has a good first year, sets the record for sacks and all that. But then the reality was we gave up all these draft picks for Jamal Adams, just like the Broncos gave up for Russell Wilson. But that's not where the buck stops. That's just to get you in the door. Now, after next year, they're going to have to do what we were not willing to do, which was pay him a monstrous new contract set now with a new bar by Aaron Rodgers, who just, $200 million, 4 years, basically $50 million per year. Russell's going to want that. He's going to want that money. Now, Broncos already gave up all this draft capital, and now they got to take on his salary and then enter these new contracts. So imagine the turmoil if Russell Wilson and the Broncos have a horrible year next year. Because, right now Wilson's like, oh yeah, this press conference, yeah, I'm all about winning. I came here to win. And when I'm with the players, I want to get everyone that same championship mentality where every play is going to be one that we can win with. We're going to win. It starts with preparation, blah, blah, blah. So that's all great. We heard that for 10 years straight. And I believe he believes it. So it's no different. He's Russ, whether he's here or Russ in Denver. But as we know, it's not easy to win a Super Bowl. We did it once. We should have done it twice. And we got close to getting back a few times, but always fell short. Always ended up losing the divisional round, wild card round. A couple times not making the playoffs at all. It is hard. Even when you have everything going for you, it is hard to get to and win the Super Bowl. And the reality is, that is one tough division that the Broncos are in. You got Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who were really one play away from returning to the Super Bowl last year. Can't believe they still lost that game to the Bengals. And I'm pretty convinced that the Chiefs had made it. They could have knocked off the Rams. But for whatever reason, Patrick Mahomes and that offense didn't show up for the second half of the AFC Championship game. Only scored one field goal the entire second half. It's crazy. How is that possible? A team that scored in a week earlier, scored 21 points in the span of 2 minutes. They muster a field goal in the span of 30. But go figure. That's just what I'm saying. It's hard. It's hard to win and get back to the Super Bowl. So, they do have this offensive-minded coach. They got the coordinator from the Packers who's going to, obviously in a system that favored the quarterback. But, you still got to have defense. got special teams. You know, you can't do it all. Russell can't do it all. He's been trying to do it all here and only managed to eke out one Super Bowl. I always thought he'd be here longer to at least see us win 2 at some point down the line. So Russell said, you know, my goal is to play for another 10, 12 years, win 3 or 4 Super Bowls, and retire as a Bronco. That last part kind of hurts me. Maybe in the end, well, I don't know. You know, it's hard for me to imagine, like, Russ, I will end up in the Hall of Fame when all is said and done. Now, whether he wins another Super Bowl or not, hopefully he doesn't. That's just me being selfish again. But if he does, let's say he does win 1 Super Bowl at the Broncos and then plays 10 years and retires. Kind of like basically what the Seahawks did, what he did with the Seahawks. 10 years, a Super Bowl, 10 more years in a Super Bowl. He'd be 43 years old. Let's say he retires, right? Doesn't do the Brady thing and retires. Which team would he go in as? You know, he says he wants to retire a Bronco. I mean, that obviously just means he wants to not play for any other teams and just play for the Broncos. And when he hangs it up, he'll be wearing the orange, which I can understand. He said that too about Seattle. So, you know, he goes out saying that you kind of have to say those things. But which jersey would he wear? You know, what team would he go in as when he goes into the Hall of Fame? I would like to think it would be with the Seahawks just because we're the ones who gave him the start. He got his first one, and, you know, but who knows? Who knows how it'll all play out. But that could all be thwarted if, let's say, next year the Broncos go like 6-11, right? Have a less than mediocre season, have a very disappointing season. What would the Broncos do then? You know, he would be now entering his last year of the contract. You gave up all this draft capital. You're kind of on the hook, kind of like how we were with Jamal Adams. We were kind of stuck where we had to sign him to this really outlandish deal because you already gave up so much to get him. And that would take a lot of guts to do all that, give up all these players and draft picks for a quarterback with the belief that he's going to take you to the promised land. And what if he doesn't deliver in the first year? What if it's a really disappointing first year? What would the Broncos do? Would they just kind of write it off and go, yeah, you know, it's just the first year. They'll get better. Let's pay Russell $51 million a year for 4 years. Just so he's $1, maybe like $50 million and $1. So he'd be $1 higher than Aaron Rodgers contractually. But yeah, what would that look like? You know, what would you do? And I want that chaos because obviously if he does the Tom Brady thing, and this is what Russ is hoping for. He's hoping he'll pull the Tom Brady out of his hat. You leave one team, you go to the next one, and you win a Super Bowl that first year out. And that's the dream, right? And obviously when Russell was watching that happen, I'm sure that helped spark that idea that, well, if Brady can do it, maybe I could do it. And I just don't want that to work. I don't want it to work for not just Russ, obviously, but future quarterbacks that might think of doing the same thing. Because I guess for me, I'm sort of a, you know, commitment guy. Like when the going gets tough, you know, you don't just bolt and run and look for greener pastures elsewhere. It feels like we live in a world now where that's kind of what you do. If you're not happy with what you got, ditch it and go get something else. You know, that's why nowadays, you remember back in the old days, our folks would work for one company for like 25 years, 30 years, and then just retire with their pension. I mean, those days are over for the most part. And now you're lucky if a person stays with a company for like 5 years before moving on to something else. So I was like, what's out there? What's better out there? What other opportunities do I have out there? We gotta make more money. You know, yeah, I know you guys have been good to me, but sorry, these guys are offering me greener pastures. So unless you're going to match it, I'm out. You know, so I guess, you know, for me, I mean, I can't compare my situation because I don't work for somebody. I own my own business, so it's not like I'm going to jump ship from my own business. But my general feeling would be, I think if I was in a working mode, I think I'd be more likely to be trying to figure out ways to work it out and stay than to try to jump ship at the first time of danger. You know what I mean? I mean, there's kind of commitments like that to everything, you know, your relationships and, friendships, because it's easy to just unfollow, unsubscribe. I'm not happy with you. Unsubscribe. Cancel this. I don't like your service. I'm cut you off. I'm going over here now. It's very much what I want right now type of world we live in. And, and a lot of people get rewarded for that. Tom Brady got rewarded. Here's coming back. Didn't make it last year, but he's back. I think he just didn't, after that very short retirement, where he pretty much retired and unretired in like the same breath. Yeah, I think after giving it some thought, it's time for me to hang. No, actually, no, I take it back. I'm back. That lasted all but 2 seconds. And now, Brady's ready to run it back again with the Buccaneers. And go this way this time. So, yay for Tampa Bay fans. Sorry for the bloke who got the last touchdown ball thrown by Tom Brady, spent like $500,000 for it. Thinking, yeah, I got the last touchdown ball ever thrown by Tom Brady. Woohoo! This was worth every dollar of the $500,000 I spent. What? Oh, sheep. Suddenly that ball just went in terms of value. It was the last. Now it's going to be the last ball Tom Brady ever threw touchdown, asterisk, before he came back from retirement. Poor dude. Not really. He's got $500,000 waste on the ball. I ain't feeling sorry for you. Screw him. Anyway, I'm not bitter. So getting to the last couple minutes of my walk here. So I guess what I do, after all that's said, I do feel pretty optimistic about so far what the Seahawks are doing. But it is those two big positions that are really the unknowns. I mean, they got a lot more work to do still in the trenches. They still need more defensive pass rushes. They really spend some Mayoa. I don't know how many more guys are going to be returning. I like the guys we have, but I feel like we need maybe at least another one to help the latest addition to our pass rush. I feel like we still got to keep restocking because injuries happen and all that stuff. And the running game, Rashad Penny, who's it going to be? Can't just be Chris Carson. We know that. And, of course, the big question, who's going to be under center? Will my theory be right that they're going to make it look like we're rolling with Drew Lock, saying all his praises and how he looked good on tape and had a great start, one of the best starts in Broncos for a rookie before things kind of went south when their coordinator left? Sounds like a great story. Also sounds like a great smokescreen to make people think that's what you want to do, when all the while you have no intention of having Drew Lock be your quarterback and drafting Malik Willis or somebody else in the 9th pick. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go now. Since I'm in this heavy, nobody's telling the truth anymore mindset when it comes to press conferences, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to do what they're saying they're going to do, and they're going to draft a quarterback in the 9th round with the 9th pick, just because that would be the most immediate solution that gets you going now without a major investment. It allows you to keep your cap space and your draft capital. But we shall find out if that is the case very soon. The draft's coming up a couple months, so we're going to know kind of where things finish. Like my replacement van, that's the temporary NorbCam van, since my other one's in the shop. It's a Chrysler Pacifica. My girl's actually, well, at least Vanessa, she likes this vehicle better. I think she just likes this blue purplish color. I think that's the only reason, really. But anyway, so that's it for now. I will come up, pop in from time to time with more reactions to draft picks, or not draft picks, to free agent moves that the Seahawks make. I am working on a music video for Russell Wilson's departure, and I think be on the lookout for it. I hope to release it, if not this week, early next week. That speaks to, I would like to think, encapsulates all of our fans' feelings about Russell leaving the Seahawks. So look out for that come in the next few days. And lastly, now that I finally got my Xbox account working again, and my NorbCam gamer tag reinstated, We are finally going to do the Madden Tournament of Champions championship game with me and It's Your Boy X tomorrow at 5 o'clock Pacific time. So he was lights out, demolishing pretty much everybody in the tournament. So I probably stand as much of a chance of Russell Wilson had of staying with the Seahawks for the career as I do beating this guy. It's Your Boy X in Xbox. But it'll all be good fun. It'll all be good fun even if I get mopped all over the field. Not to mention I haven't played in like 3 weeks, so I'm rusty as hell. So it's a bad combination right now for this matchup. But hey, it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. All right, that's it. You guys have a great day. Talk to you guys soon. Take care and go Seahawks. That's right. Go Seahawks is right.